While the new Star Wars Expanded Universe has fleshed out the backstory of Darth Maul after the Clone Wars, primarily through the Star Wars Rebels TV show and Solo, things were quite different in the old Legends EU, with the last living appearance of Maul in the excellent Clone Wars episode The Lawless, where he and Savage are defeated by Sidious in a duel. After that, the Zabrak Sith died off-screen, and his fate isn't properly addressed until issue 9 of Star Wars Tale in a story called Resurrection. In the months preceding the Battle of Yavin, Vader is brought to the Mustafar-esque moon of Kalikar 6, while hunting the Rebel Alliance and the stolen Death Star plans. As Vader's legion of stormtroopers search the planet, they are beset upon by a cloaked Force user who brutalizes the troops. Vader, who is searching elsewhere, comes across a temple which he discovers is strong in the dark side of the Force. He senses an approaching presence and his guards are killed. The presence reveals itself and is made up of several adherents to the dark side. They tell Vader that they believe him an inadequate apprentice to Palpatine, as too much of Anakin Skywalker and his former Jedi persona remains within him. They might have a point. As Vader moves to strike the servants down in anger, his lightsaber is intercepted by Darth Maul. Vader, confused, explains to the audience, I suppose, that Maul was killed years ago. As a note, we later learned through dialogue that Maul was actually killed at the hands of a Jedi, and not just any Jedi, specifically Obi-Wan. And this is reference to the non-canon short story Old Wounds, which, like the Rebels episode Twin Suns, see Obi-Wan kill the Sith to protect Luke on Tatooine. Regardless, Maul has been resurrected by ancient dark side techniques, and the Acolytes specifically see him as a proper apprentice to Sidious, a true Sith without light who fit properly into Bane's rule of two, one who was not tainted. Interestingly, we learn in the novel Plagueis that Sidious didn't even see Maul in this way. He saw Anakin as his eventual successor. Maul was more of a tool, a destructive force. And when the Zabrak actually entered the fold, Palpatine was still apprenticed to Plagueis. So the proper master-apprentice relationship never even existed between the two in the first place. The Darksiders say that Maul and Vader must duel, and Vader accepts. Maul, with his famously fast and aggressive fighting style, actually has the initial edge, especially because at first, Vader believes him to be a fake and underestimates him. Throughout the battle, Maul taunts Vader, using his past as a Jedi Knight and his former persona of Anakin Skywalker to refer to him basically as an imperfect Darksider. The taunting does cause Vader to become more aggressive. He takes not only an offensive posture, but uses the Force to fire the blasters of his downed stormtrooper escort. The dialogue between the two is interesting as they continue to battle, with Maul continually challenging the dark side abilities and purity of Anakin, and Vader continuing to call him a sham. The Adepts believe that Maul will come up on top, as he relies more on his pure hate, while Vader is slowed by indecisiveness. Maul strikes Vader's suit, and the Sith Lord retaliates by bisecting Maul's blade. However, the Zabrak is able to gain the advantage, injuring Vader as he again suffers on the slopes of a lava river. As Maul derides Vader for not having the hate to defeat him, Vader gives himself fully to the dark side, stabbing himself in order to fatally injure Maul. Vader reveals that there is something he hates enough to give him the needed power, himself. Vader moves to kill the prophets of the dark side, but before he is able to, they are electrocuted from the shadows, and out steps Sidious. Palpatine, perhaps as a way to test Vader's loyalty, and more than that, his submissiveness, states that he had no idea what was going on, only that he was checking up on Vader's search for the Death Star plans. Obviously, this makes absolutely no sense and is a totally transparent lie. The first thing Sidious says, for example, is, "Oh, you survived." And of course, he shocks the Darkside Adepts out of nowhere. These would have been his allies. We see the self-hate that Vader alluded to as he is forced to bow to his master, who not only had been willing to throw him away, but lied to his face about it. One interesting thing is that Sidious says there are ways those who are no more can live again. Obviously, the life of Padme was the driving force of Anakin's fall, so it's fairly bold for Sidious to say such a thing without hesitation. We also do know, of course, that everlasting life in surviving after death was perhaps the desire of Sidious, and that he actually returned from death during the Dark Empire crisis. I think it's almost certain that he was the one personally to resurrect Maul. with the acolytes merely as cover. Even if that's not true, and he didn't perform the Sith magic himself, it's clear that he would have been the one to order Maul's resurrection, as nothing in the galaxy happens without him knowing, certainly in relation to his power and his apprentice. Another thing that deserves attention is a discussion had by two stormtroopers near the beginning of the comic. They mentioned that the moon was not only believed to be a nexus of the dark side, but also a place for strange dark side experiments. One of these experiments went wrong, resulting in the massacre and self-mutilation of a group living on the moon. Interestingly, the planet this moon orbits is actually in the Dromund-Kaas system, which of course was known for its heavy involvement in various Sith factions throughout history. Anyway, that's all for today. Today's question comes from Lord Cola, who asks whether I play Star Wars Armada. Great question. I actually don't, despite the fact that I love Star Wars and I love strategy games. My main reason why is because tabletop games always seemed pretty expensive to get into, and I never liked the idea of having to paint pieces because I'm not very artistically gifted. I don't know whether you have to do that for Armada or not, but it was really the price that always seemed like the main thing keeping me out, plus none of my friends play it. The same is true for the other tabletop games or non-video game RPGs. That being said, I do typically try to collect or at the very least read the associated rules or source books, because they're usually a pretty decent source of lore. Anyways guys, thank you for tuning in. If you've got your own question, make sure to leave down below with the hashtag AskEck. Until next time, may the Force be with you.